The Dallas Cowboys have been trying to figure out how they can do something different because all they've done is go to the playoffs. They might win a game in the Dak Prescott era. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but they never can get over the hump. And so apparently they've identified what the problem is.
Uh-oh, here it is.
The problem is Mike McCarthy wasn't calling plays. All right, so Kellen Moore is out as offensive coordinator. Less than 24 hours later, he's with the Chargers.
Which, by the way, people are really excited about Kellen Moore and Herbert joining forces.
Well, yeah, Kellen Moore should be excited.
Yeah,
I mean, when
a lot of people are excited.
I mean, when your last play call for the Dallas Cowboys was that, where Zeke Elliott's playing center.
Did he call that, you think?
Hell yeah, he called that.
Maybe Mike McCarthy called it. Maybe Mike McCarthy was like,
you
it's
see
my
something
time.
like that, yeah. If you're Mike McCarthy, you're like, you literally tell your OC, hey, if we're going to run this, that's
better
on you.
work.
Yeah, no. That's not even better work.
Better work.
That's on you.
Yeah.
When this doesn't work, that's on you.
I'm the guy who's going to have to answer the questions afterwards, so it better work. But Kellen Moore's out. He's with the Chargers now. He takes over the OC job there. And so there's a whole nother side of that conversation. But this does feel like if this is true and the reports are accurate and Mike McCarthy's going to be calling plays. This is it,
Last
right?
it. Yeah.
This is it.
What I say? Last it.
This is it. If he's going out calling his own plays, and then you see how this season works. But Jerry Jones talking about, I want Mike McCarthy here to coach as long as Tom Landry. If they come up short again this year, it feels like there's a bunch of changes.
Well, wasn't he the one who fired Tom Landry?
Yeah, he was.
All right.
That didn't go over well.
It could be related to Tom Landry one way or the other.
That didn't seem to go over well with people in Dallas when it initially happened. But, so there it is. Mike McCarthy's going to be your play caller. Kellen Moore is out. He's now with the Bolts, the L.A. Chargers. How about it?
How about it?
Who's fired up about Mike McCarthy calling plays next year for the Dallas Cowboys?
Oh, is that the angle we're taking here? We're not going to talk about the Chargers?
Well, no. Take whatever angle you want. Just throwing it out there.
Well, I think that's where the bigger news is. I mean, it's twofold. One, I think Mike McCarthy, this is his last shot. I mean, if your background's play calling and you've had another person doing that and you've got to move on from that person and take over those duties, this is it. I mean, if they don't win, if they don't get what Jerry Jones is looking for after this year, you'd have to think they're going to move on. And obviously Jerry Jones is looking at it saying we've got some offensive problems, which is why they didn't want to bring Kellen Moore back. So here it is. It's kind of all on the table for Dallas. And for the Chargers, like what I love about it is, say what you want about Kellen Moore. You know, they've had some of the better offenses, at least statistically speaking, since he's been there. And the one criticism of the Chargers is that Joe Lombardi wouldn't allow Justin Herbert to throw the football down the field. And if you go look at his yards per attempt, it was one of the fewest or lowest in the NFL this year. Well, that's going to change. Kellen Moore's been top 10 the entire time he was an OC during his time in Dallas, with the exception of 1 year, and that was the year Dak only started 5 games. And in that 5-game span, Dak was averaging about 8.5 yards per attempt. So, you know, you're going to get an offense that's going to stretch the field vertically. You're going to incorporate Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, all those playmakers, but just I think appease a lot of the fan base in L.A. that wants to see Herbert play like Herbert can. So I love the pairing for the Chargers. I think it makes a lot of sense. It should work out. For Dallas, though, I'm not sure what to think because, you know, Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott both are going to be starting to feel the heat this upcoming season.
I think, of course, people are going to be excited about it for L.A. because, again, obviously, for obvious reasons of what Q stated, they are going to push the ball down the field, probably be a more aggressive offense. I find it curious that we are now in so what if Mike McCarthy is assuming the play calling duties, are you going to have an assistant OC? Are you going to find like your Eric Bieniemy where you have someone who is considered, they're called the OC or whatever they may be, but it's Mike McCarthy. Like, I wonder what the approach is, because when you're a head coach, you basically are the CEO of that team, and you figure out ways to delegate the duties as to what takes place so that you can monitor the entire whole of what's going on. You monitor all three phases, and then you also have to be aware of everything else that's taking place. You got to be aware of what food they're eating. When you're traveling, there's so many things you got to be aware of and in the know as a head coach. A lot of people think that it's just coaching, and it's not. So the administrative duties that a head coach has are is significant. And so I'm just wondering, if you're taking on that duty, then how does that look in terms of how you're going to manage the entire team? Because there is a lot of detail, especially at the league level. There's a lot of detail that goes into prep for what an offense is going to do. So this could go well, because Mike McCarthy has in the past been known to be a really good play caller, but it could also go horribly wrong if it's not balanced out the right way. Something else could. I mean, listen, Dan Quinn is a head coach that's coaching defense, so it's not like he has to put too much time and energy into that. But I just wonder if this is a wise and prudent decision by Mike McCarthy, because I think it definitely says the bullseye is directly on him at this point.
Are you surprised that Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn have both interviewed multiple times the last two hiring cycles for head coaching jobs? I mean, Kellen Moore was the finalist for, I think it was Carolina, and it might have been another one. This is multiple years in a row that Kellen Moore's interviewed for head coaching jobs. And Dan Quinn came back, but Kellen Moore did not. So, it does feel like, and if you're the Chargers, the fact that you can get this guy who was potentially a head coach elsewhere a couple of years in a row to take over Justin Herbert and that offense moving forward, if you're the Chargers, you got to be ecstatic about the hire. I think that's probably the reason why less than a day later he got the job. I don't know if the conversations were already happening before then. I don't even know if that's legal, but less than a day later, after it was announced that he was gone, the Chargers swiped him up and said, we'll take that and move forward.
Think about this for Kellen Moore, too. Isn't there a lot of heat on Brandon Staley?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, absolutely. So might be his last leg, too.
The hard thing is if things go wrong, you're thinking like Kellen Moore's going to take some of the brunt of that, too. So it's hard to think that they could turn it around. But if things went wrong, they weren't winning games, Brandon Staley gets clipped, then you've got Kellen Moore sitting there maybe as the interim head coach. And it's a great opportunity for him. So I even think like the setup for him is good in L.A., even if things don't work out initially as far as what it could turn into. But for Dallas, I keep looking at it thinking this is all set up for Dan Quinn to take over at some point. If things don't go well and Jerry Jones wants to move on from Mike McCarthy because the offense isn't up to snuff and Dak's not playing as well as they're all hoping he's going to, you've got Dan Quinn sitting there waiting in the wings to take over as that interim head coach. So I find it kind of like a fascinating time right now for how this is going to work out for both those teams, given how much heat is on each of the head coaches.